Hello and welcome to my Marvel Rivals Magic Guide. For some background, I have been a top 500 slash GMFX player in Overwatch and also a collegiate competitor, and I played a ton of Magic in beta for Marvel Rivals. So if you do happen to be coming from Overwatch, I would say Magic plays most similarly to Venture and Overwatch 1 Doomfist. She has really good engage mobility but is super limited in her range, so she will get punished for mistakes. Also, similar to Venture's Barrow, she has a short length and vulnerability ability, kind of like Venture's abilities, but the combat of Doomfist, if that makes sense. So with that said, let's go into the abilities. So what actually are her abilities? Well, her primary attack is just a melee range sword slash that does around 75 damage, and her right click or secondary is a ranged projectile that does between 55 and 110 damage, I believe, depending on how long you charge it. Her next ability are her portals, which gives her a short period of invulnerability, and then she can either summon a demon that will swipe at enemies, or she can do like a swirl slash that does AoE damage, which I believe does 50. That's important to know that 50 is in fact less than 75, which is a regular attack. So doing that will do less damage. Next is her dash, and this is really the bread and butter of what makes a magic good versus bad, which I'll get into how to use later. But anyway, her dash does 100 damage and is quite similar to Genji's from Overwatch in terms of the mechanics. It will also knock anyone you hit upwards, making for an easy combo. Moving on to her ult, it essentially just amplifies all her abilities, damage, and range, making it super good in large teamfight brawls. And last but not least is Magik's passive. So what this does is it converts damage she deals into shields for herself, again making her really good in those brawl fights. So now you know what she does, but how should you play her? Let's start with the fundamentals and then I'll move into her playstyle option. The first thing you're going to quickly realize is that her portals are not really meant to be an escape tool. I mean, yeah, you go invulnerable for a sec, but it doesn't get you out of the brawl when you need to unless you're already almost out. Which means your best option for escaping is your dash, since that can take you to high ground and goes a moderately far distance. And now what makes her dash so hard to use is that while it's also her best escape tool, it also is her perfect engagement tool. So while it's difficult to land, if you do, you can almost guarantee yourself a kill if it's not on a tank, because of the insane damage it does. So you're probably asking, what should you use it for, engaging or disengaging? Well, the answer is both, and let me explain. You want to first use it as an engage, and then use your other cooldowns to do damage so you get shields. So like using your portals to dodge attacks and skill shots, while also allowing you to dance around cover. You basically just have to stay alive 8 seconds no matter what until your dash resets, and at this point, unless the fight is guaranteed won, you need to use it to get out and get some healing. Basically, all you need to remember is by the time you get your second dash, save that one for an escape. Do not use it on an enemy unless you will win the fight, and live, this is very important. If you die, it's probably not going to be a worth trade. So that kind of actually explains the first playstyle she has, which is this in and out brawler style. Alternatively, you can play backline assassin, but you need to know your matchup and have good target priority along with patience and timing. Because she is a melee character, this means you should not be trying to poke unless maybe a little bit here and there with a right click, but make sure you have it back again when you need it. For the most part, and this goes for both playstyles but more so assassin, you want to play sneaky, staging above or behind the enemies and carefully choosing your target and setting up your dive. The key here is patience. Wait for the enemy tanks to get in a fight or dive and the healers to be split or distracted, then go in for the kill. Make sure you have all your cooldowns in a full health bar too. You never want to take a fight unless you're healthy and have some abilities ready. Now we'll talk about her combos and ability usage. So let's talk about her projectile slash. Now this is another tricky ability to use. Do you use it on the engage or mid fight? To be honest, it's very situational. When you're staging for a dive, I want to stay focused on hitting the dash instead of the projectile, because if you do hit them with the right click, they'll likely notice you and could potentially dodge your E, and then you're out of range to do any damage. Of course, if you think you can pull it off, then a full charge right click and a dash is almost always going to translate into a kill. Don't go for anything too dangerous though, because then you won't have your dash when their whole team is looking at you with your pants down. I also want to mention that there have been many situations where I found it more useful to use the right click when an enemy uses a movement ability to get out of my range and they're low enough for me to finish them with the right click. But if you use it early, you might have it again for when that happens. This is honestly just something that comes with putting time into Magic, and that's the best way to improve at using her right clicks. Now onto her portals. When should you use the demon or the whirl? You should be using the demon to block chokes and deny space, especially when stalling on defense or on the point in overtime, because people will have to fight in its range. If you use a portal to back up, use the demon because it will stop people from pushing you better than the spin. You could also use it when you push an enemy into a wall or corner. Otherwise, use the spin because it gives a little more range than our normal attack, so it's generally better in the 1v1s. And when ulting, the spins are also just crazy. Moving on to her ult. Magik's ult is absolutely game winning, and you can use it in a lot of scenarios, but make sure you get the cast up. She has a dastardly ultimate cast time and animation. A lot of times you think you can pull off a fat ult, but then get stunned out of it or die during the cast. So it's best to plan using an ult and go first rather than using it reactively. Also, when your ult ends, you have to go through another egregious animation lock. So again, prioritize living and know when you need to dip. With that being said, don't be crazy to go in hard when you do pull it off, because all the damage you'll be dealing will give you more shields, just snowballing it into this massive damage. Just be careful to dodge crowd control abilities, because that's how you'll get shut down. And just like any fight, make sure you have health and cooldowns before you ult. So if you are going to use a combo, there's really only one option here, which is to hit a right click into dash and then the primary or portal to dodge and then finish with a spin. Or you can still hit with the dash and then throw the projectile ability in there for some extra damage if you think it's too risky to right click and dash. If you don't think you're going to remember anything I just said, then remember this at least. Take your time setting up. Thoughtfully scout and select your targets. Wait till you have resources, then engage and use cover and your portals to stay alive till your dash is back and get out. Magik is super good in the brawl and has great potential for burst assassinations. Hopefully this guide has helped, and I would appreciate if you could all like and subscribe for me. I plan to stream some games and give more in-depth coaching and gameplay in the future, so thanks for sticking around and peace.